You were told that if you worked hard enough, another stream of income would set you free. Nobody warned you that chasing too many streams at once can leave you thirsty beside a river. The cruelest financial trap of this generation is not laziness, it is scattered ambition. Millions of intelligent people are exhausting themselves every evening, every weekend, every holiday, believing they are building freedom, while in reality, they are building a second job with a different logo. This audiobook is not here to tell you that side hustles are bad. It is here to expose the lie that surrounds them. Because there is a difference between owning an asset and renting yourself out twice. There is a difference between building leverage and multiplying exhaustion. And if you understand that difference, it can change not only your income, but the direction of your entire life. Over the next few hours, we will walk through the hidden psychology of why almost everyone starts a side hustle, why nearly all of them quietly disappear, and why the small percentage who succeed seem to play by completely different rules. We will explore money, identity, attention, discipline, timing, patience, technology, artificial intelligence, and the uncomfortable truth that the greatest opportunity in today's world often looks painfully boring in the beginning. One sentence is worth carrying with you from this very moment. The goal is not to work more hours. The goal is to make fewer hours matter more. Everything you hear is educational and intended to help you think more clearly about your own financial decisions. No one can tell you what path is right for your circumstances, but perhaps by the end of this journey, you will stop asking which side hustle pays the fastest and start asking a much better question. What kind of life is actually worth building? Because that question changes everything. A man once finished his shift at a warehouse just after sunset. His back ached. His phone buzzed with another notification from a creator promising financial freedom. Start today. Build passive income. Escape the 9-to-5. Never work for anyone again. He believed every word. On the way home, he signed up to deliver food. 3 months later, he added online tutoring, then weekend photography, then affiliate marketing, then an online store, then digital products, then content creation. Every new opportunity arrived wrapped in hope. Every one of them promised to become the missing piece. His calendar became impossible. His evenings disappeared. His relationships quietly weakened. Sleep became optional. Instead of escaping one job, he had accidentally collected 6 bosses. Customers became bosses. Algorithms became bosses. Notifications became bosses. Reviews became bosses. Trends became bosses. One night, he sat in his car outside his apartment. The engine was off. The silence was overwhelming. He opened his banking app. He had earned more money than ever before. He had never felt poorer, not because of his account balance, because his life no longer belonged to him. That story is becoming normal, not because people are weak, because the world has become incredibly skilled at selling effort disguised as freedom. Every generation inherits a financial myth. There was a time when people believed loyalty to one company guaranteed security. Then they learned companies could disappear. Later, people believed university degrees guaranteed prosperity. Many discovered that education was valuable, but not always enough by itself. Now, the modern myth says that everyone needs multiple streams of income. Notice how rarely anyone explains what kind of streams. Imagine standing beside a river. One stream flows steadily into a reservoir. Another floods during storms and dries up in summer. Another requires you to carry every bucket yourself. Another flows while you sleep. Would you call them equal simply because they are all streams? Of course not. Yet people speak about income the same way. Income is not defined only by how much arrives. It is defined by what it demands from you in return. There are streams that purchase your evenings forever. There are streams that purchase your peace. There are streams that consume your attention so completely that your primary career begins to suffer. And there are streams that become rivers because they eventually stop depending on every hour you personally invest. Understanding that difference is where wisdom begins. The internet has made opportunity abundant. That is both its greatest gift and its greatest danger. Open your phone today, and within minutes, you can learn how to sell handmade products, publish books, edit videos, teach languages, invest in businesses, create software, build communities, design digital templates, license music, start newsletters, consult companies, manage advertising campaigns, or use artificial intelligence to automate work that once required entire teams. Never before has one person had access to so many possibilities. Never before has one person been so vulnerable to distraction. Opportunity creates a hidden tax: attention. Every possibility asks for your focus before it gives you anything in return. The people who fail rarely lack intelligence. They run out of attention before they run out of ideas. Attention has quietly become the rarest currency on earth. Companies fight for it. Social media platforms engineer entire systems to capture it. News organizations compete for it. Streaming services compete for it. Advertisers purchase it. Even your own ambitions compete with one another. If your attention becomes fragmented, your future often follows. This explains why two people can begin with the same amount of talent and finish in completely different places. One protects attention like treasure. The other spends it like loose change. Years later, the results appear mysterious. They never were. Imagine planting 10 different trees. Every morning you give each tree one spoonful of water. Months pass. None of them grow very much. Now imagine planting one tree. Every morning you bring buckets. Shade appears. Fruit appears. Roots deepen. People often confuse diversification with dilution. They are not the same. Real diversification usually comes after strength. Dilution happens before strength has a chance to exist. The 1% understand something that almost nobody talks about. Focus is not the opposite of opportunity. Focus is what allows opportunity to become real. A young woman wanted to build financial independence. She loved graphic design. She also enjoyed baking. She considered opening an online clothing store. She watched videos about cryptocurrency. She downloaded 3 investing apps. She planned a podcast. She registered 4 domain names. Every idea seemed brilliant for about 48 hours. Every new possibility created another beginning. Nothing survived long enough to become excellent. Eventually, she met an older business owner who asked only one question. If I locked every opportunity in the world behind one door except one, which one would you still choose? She answered immediately, design. Then why are you living like your answer was uncertain? That question stayed with her for weeks. Sometimes clarity does not arrive because we discover something new. Sometimes clarity arrives because someone removes everything unnecessary. There is something strangely comforting about beginning. Beginnings are filled with possibility. No evidence exists yet that something will fail. Your imagination supplies unlimited success. Reality has not interrupted. Finishing is different. Finishing demands repetition. Finishing demands patience after excitement disappears. Finishing asks who you are when no one is applauding. That is where almost everyone quietly leaves. Not because the opportunity was bad, because the romance ended. There is an old pattern hidden inside human nature. We overestimate what can happen in 3 months. We underestimate what can happen in 5 years. This single habit destroys countless side hustles. People expect exponential rewards from linear effort. When those rewards fail to appear quickly, they assume the project itself has failed. In reality, many worthwhile pursuits remain almost invisible for a painfully long time. Think about learning a language. The first weeks feel awkward. Progress seems microscopic. Then one day you realize you understood an entire conversation without translating every sentence. The growth was happening long before it became obvious. Business works much the same way. Skills work much the same way. Trust works much the same way. Reputation certainly works that way. The greatest danger is quitting just before invisible progress becomes visible. There is another trap almost nobody discusses: identity. Many people do not actually want a business. They want to become the kind of person who owns one. Those are completely different desires. Owning the identity is easy. Building the reality is difficult. Identity without substance creates performance. Substance eventually creates identity, whether you announce it or not. This is why some people spend months designing logos before earning their first customer. They perfect websites before solving real problems. They order business cards before building business value. It feels productive, it often is not. Real businesses usually begin with uncomfortable conversations. Real businesses begin by helping someone solve a specific problem well enough that they gladly return. Everything else grows from there. The internet encourages the opposite. It rewards appearance before achievement. It rewards visibility before value. And if you are not careful, you begin measuring progress through attention instead of usefulness. That is one of the most expensive mistakes you can make. Because applause cannot pay bills forever. Only value can. There is something I hope you remember whenever another trend appears on your screen promising effortless wealth. Ask one quiet question. If this disappeared tomorrow, what skill would remain inside me? That question separates temporary income from permanent growth. Because skills travel with you. Algorithms do not. Platforms change, markets shift, technologies evolve. But the ability to solve meaningful problems becomes more valuable with every passing year. And that is where our journey truly begins, in the place where almost nobody thinks to look, not at the opportunity itself, but at the person reaching for it, carrying invisible beliefs that will determine long before the first dollar arrives whether the path ahead becomes another abandoned experiment or the foundation of a completely different life. The first lie is not that side hustles work. The first lie is that success belongs to the person who works the longest. That belief is so deeply rooted that many people never question it. They simply accept that if 12 hours produce a certain result, 16 hours must produce an even better one. For a while, life seems to agree. Income rises. Friends admire the effort. Family members say they are proud. Social media celebrates the grind. Then something invisible begins to happen. Your ability to make good decisions starts to fade, not all at once, quietly. You answer messages without thinking carefully. You postpone difficult conversations because your mind is too tired. You stop reading because entertainment requires less energy. Your creativity becomes predictable. Your patience becomes shorter. Your standards slowly begin to fall. You mistake movement for progress because exhaustion makes reflection uncomfortable. Few people notice this while it is happening. After all, busy people look successful from the outside. Calendars filled with meetings, phones buzzing every minute, coffee replacing sleep, weekends becoming workdays. It looks impressive until one simple question is asked. If you stopped working for 2 weeks, what would continue growing without you? That question has embarrassed more entrepreneurs than any financial statement ever could. Because many people do not own businesses. They own demanding jobs that happen to pay them directly. There is nothing wrong with earning money through effort. The problem begins when effort becomes the only engine your income has. Imagine two builders. The first carries every brick by hand. The second spends weeks building a crane before placing the first wall. From a distance, the first appears far more productive. Day after day, bricks are moving. Sweat is visible. Progress seems obvious. The second builder appears almost lazy, planning, testing, adjusting, installing equipment. For weeks, there is very little to admire. Then one morning, the crane begins lifting hundreds of bricks with almost no physical effort. Now the first builder works harder than ever just to stay behind. This is leverage, and almost every lasting fortune has been built upon it. Leverage is not magic. It is simply finding ways for your knowledge, your systems, your reputation, your technology, or your capital to continue creating value after today's work is finished. The modern world offers more leverage than any period in history. Artificial intelligence can now assist with research, writing, design, customer support, software development, translation, and countless repetitive tasks. Automation tools quietly complete work while people sleep. Digital products can be sold thousands of times without being recreated from the beginning. Communities grow through trust instead of physical location. Yet many people use these remarkable tools to produce even more busyness instead of more freedom. Technology magnifies whatever habits already exist. A distracted person becomes faster at being distracted. A focused person becomes dramatically more effective. The tool is rarely the difference. The mind using it is. There is a story about a violin maker whose instruments became famous across the world. Visitors expected to discover secret woods imported from distant forests or mysterious chemicals hidden inside old workshops. Instead, they found an elderly craftsman who repeated one sentence over and over. I never hurry the part nobody will ever see. The inside of each instrument received as much care as the polished surface everyone admired. No customer would notice. The sound always would. Your financial life works exactly the same way. The habits nobody applauds determine the results everyone notices later. The quiet evening spent learning instead of scrolling. The notebook filled with lessons from failed experiments. The difficult decision to master one valuable skill before chasing another opportunity. The willingness to disappoint people by protecting your attention. These moments rarely receive applause. Years later, they receive rewards. One of the strangest things about success is that it often feels disappointing while it is being built. Not because success itself disappoints you, because reality refuses to match fantasy. The first paying customer rarely arrives with fireworks. The first $1,000 rarely changes your life. The first year often feels confusing. There are mistakes, refunds, technical problems, unexpected taxes, moments when you wonder whether everyone else understands something you somehow missed. This is normal. The internet usually introduces us to successful people during the chapter where everything finally makes sense. It almost never shows the chapters where they question themselves every night. A software founder once described the first 3 years of his company in a sentence that stayed with me. Every month felt like proof we should quit. Every year proved we were glad we didn't. There is enormous wisdom hidden inside that sentence. Daily emotions are unreliable judges of long-term progress. Some mornings you will feel unstoppable and accomplish very little. Other mornings you will doubt everything while quietly laying foundations that change your future. This is why disciplined people learn not to worship motivation. Motivation is a visitor. Discipline becomes a resident. The 1% understand something almost invisible. They design lives that require less motivation because their systems continue moving even when emotions change. They schedule important work before the world becomes noisy. They remove unnecessary decisions. They simplify. They automate. They eliminate. They protect their mornings. They protect their sleep. Most importantly, they protect the quality of their thinking, because eventually every business becomes limited by the quality of the decisions behind it. Money follows decisions. Decisions follow thinking. Thinking follows attention. Attention follows habits. Change the habit, and eventually you change everything above it. Perhaps this is a good moment to pause for just a second. If something you've heard today has challenged the way you think about work, I'd love for you to share the one belief you're beginning to question. Sometimes, writing a single honest sentence creates more clarity than weeks of silent reflection. And if you know someone who is running themselves into the ground, chasing every opportunity they see, consider sharing this audiobook with them. It may give them permission to stop sprinting in every direction and finally begin building something that can truly last. There is another myth hiding beneath the surface. It sounds responsible. It even sounds wise. Never put all your eggs in one basket. At first glance, that advice seems impossible to argue with, until you ask one important question. What if you do not even own one full egg yet? Many people diversify before they have created anything worth multiplying. They divide their energy between 5 unfinished ideas, 5 average skills, 5 half-built audiences, 5 businesses that each receive 1/5 of the attention they desperately need. The result is predictable. Nothing becomes remarkable. There is a season for concentration. Later, there is a season for expansion. Confusing those seasons costs years. Think about the strongest oak tree in a forest. For years, it appears almost unimpressive. Its greatest work is happening underground. Roots spread wider than anyone can see. They anchor, they strengthen, they prepare. When storms eventually arrive, observers praise the tree's strength. They did not witness the years when strength looked like absolutely nothing. Your career has roots no one else can measure. Every difficult client teaches discernment. Every failed project teaches judgment. Every awkward conversation teaches communication. Every disappointment teaches resilience if you are willing to learn instead of simply react. People often ask what separates the 1%. They expect complicated answers, secret investments, hidden strategies. Advanced financial models. Sometimes the answer is much simpler. The 1% stay with worthwhile things long enough for compound growth to begin. Most people leave during the expensive beginning. The beginning demands effort without visible rewards. Compound growth rewards those who survive that season. The same principle applies to trust, to reputation, to health, to wisdom, to relationships. Almost everything valuable compounds, which means almost everything valuable feels slow in the beginning. And that is exactly where nearly everyone walks away, never realizing that just beyond the frustration they feel today lies the point where small, ordinary actions begin transforming into extraordinary outcomes, almost as though time itself has decided to reward those who refuse to abandon what truly mattered. There is a reason compound growth feels almost unfair once it finally reveals itself. Compounding is patient. Human emotion is not. We want reassurance long before results arrive. We want evidence that today's sacrifice is worth tomorrow's reward. We want certainty before commitment. Life rarely offers that bargain. Instead, it asks for faith in the process before it offers proof. That is why the marketplace quietly transfers wealth from the impatient to the patient every single year. Not because patience is magical, because patience allows learning to accumulate. Imagine someone learning to play the piano. The first week is filled with mistakes. The second month feels slightly better. After 1 year, people notice progress. After 10 years, audiences call it talent. What they are really seeing is accumulated consistency. Business follows the same rhythm. A newsletter with 10 readers feels insignificant. Then it reaches 100, then 1,000. Years later, it becomes a company. A YouTube channel begins with awkward videos and almost no views. A consulting practice begins with one uncertain client. A software product begins with a version so imperfect, its creator feels embarrassed to show it. Every meaningful venture begins looking small. The danger is that we compare our first chapter to someone else's 20th. Comparison is one of the most expensive habits a future entrepreneur can afford. Not because comparison always hurts your confidence. Sometimes it hurts your judgment. You begin copying strategies that belong to someone living in an entirely different season. Someone earning millions can afford a large team. Someone just beginning cannot. Someone with decades of experience can expand into multiple businesses. Someone still developing one valuable skill should probably not. Context matters more than tactics. A chef cannot use the same recipe for every ingredient. A gardener cannot water every plant the same way. Likewise, you cannot borrow someone else's path without understanding the conditions that made it successful. This is where social media quietly distorts reality. It compresses years into seconds. You see the finished office, not the tiny apartment where the work began. You see the confident speaker, not the presentations that fell apart. You see the bestseller, not the manuscripts that were rejected. You see the thriving company, not the months when payroll felt impossible. When beginnings are hidden, success appears effortless. And effortless success creates unrealistic expectations. Those expectations become disappointment. Disappointment becomes quitting. The cycle repeats. The people who eventually win interrupt that cycle. They stop asking whether progress feels fast enough. They begin asking whether progress is real. That is a completely different question. Real progress is often invisible. Your communication becomes clearer. Your judgment improves. Your confidence grows quieter. You recover from mistakes more quickly. You recognize opportunities earlier. None of these changes appear in your bank account immediately. Eventually, every one of them does. There is an investor who once described business as nothing more than solving expensive problems. The larger the problem you can solve, the more valuable you become. Think about that for a moment. Income is often misunderstood as a reward for effort. In reality, it is much closer to a reward for usefulness. Two people may both work 12 hours. One creates something thousands of people need. The other spends 12 hours repeating tasks that create little lasting value. The marketplace notices the difference even when neither person intends it. This realization changes the way you think about a side hustle. Instead of asking, "What can I sell?" you begin asking, "What problem keeps people awake at night?" Instead of asking, "How can I make money quickly?" you ask, "How can I become difficult to replace?" Those questions lead to completely different futures. The first searches for transactions. The second builds value. Value compounds. Transactions disappear. One of the greatest financial shifts happening in today's world is not artificial intelligence itself. It is the changing definition of valuable work. Tasks that are repetitive are increasingly becoming automated. Tasks that require judgment, creativity, empathy, trust, leadership, negotiation, storytelling, and original thinking become even more valuable. This frightens some people. It should inspire others. Because while technology changes tools, it also creates entirely new opportunities for those willing to adapt. Every technological revolution has followed a similar pattern. People who fight reality become exhausted. People who learn reality become indispensable. Think back to the arrival of the internet. Some businesses ignored it. Others embraced it. The difference between those two decisions shaped fortunes. Artificial intelligence is creating another similar moment, not because it replaces every job, because it changes the way exceptional people create value. Someone who understands marketing and learns AI becomes more productive. Someone who understands design and learns AI expands their capabilities. Someone who understands education and learns AI teaches more effectively. The technology does not replace expertise, it amplifies it. The same hammer can build a home or sit forgotten in a toolbox. Its value depends entirely on the hands holding it. This is why chasing shortcuts remains dangerous. Many people ask which AI tool will make them rich. Almost nobody asks which human skill will become more valuable when combined with AI. The second question creates careers. The first usually creates disappointment. There is another lesson hidden inside this. The winners rarely chase trends. They notice trends, certainly. But then they ask how those trends strengthen a long-term strategy rather than replace one. A trend may create attention. Only substance keeps it. This is why businesses built entirely on excitement often disappear as quickly as they arrived. Excitement is temporary. Trust is durable. Trust. If you spend enough time studying businesses that last decades rather than months, you begin noticing familiar patterns. They solve real problems. They improve steadily. They earn trust repeatedly. They disappoint customers occasionally, then fix the problem. They make mistakes. They adapt. They survive. Perfection was never their advantage. Persistence was. Perhaps you have experienced something similar in your own life. Maybe you started learning a language and felt foolish. Maybe you tried exercising and wanted immediate results. Maybe you launched an idea that nobody seemed to notice. Those moments are more important than they appear because they reveal the conversation happening inside your own mind. Some people interpret slow progress as failure. Others interpret slow progress as tuition. The event is identical. The interpretation changes everything. Every meaningful skill has an entry fee. The fee is embarrassment. You must be willing to be unimpressive before becoming exceptional. You must be willing to produce work that is ordinary before creating work that is extraordinary. The internet tempts us to skip this stage. It whispers that we should appear successful immediately. Life disagrees. Life quietly rewards those who accept being beginners without remaining beginners forever. There is remarkable freedom in that realization. You no longer need to impress strangers. You only need to become slightly better than you were yesterday. That sounds simple. It is. Simple does not mean easy. The greatest transformations rarely arrive through dramatic moments. They arrive through ordinary decisions repeated long enough that they eventually become part of your identity. Choosing to study instead of scrolling. Choosing to build instead of complain. Choosing to finish instead of constantly beginning. Choosing depth instead of endless novelty. Those decisions feel insignificant on a Tuesday evening. 5 years later, they become almost impossible to separate from the life you have created, because every ordinary day quietly votes for the person you are becoming, and most people never realize they have been casting those votes all along until one morning they wake up inside a life that perfectly reflects the countless small choices they once believed did not matter. There is a question almost nobody asks before starting a side hustle. What is this costing me that money cannot replace? Notice that I did not ask what it costs to begin. Most people calculate subscriptions, software, equipment, advertising, and maybe a new laptop. Very few calculate the invisible expenses, the missed conversations with people they love, the books they no longer have the energy to read, the creativity that slowly disappears beneath constant urgency, the quiet evenings that once allowed ideas to mature, the health that seemed strong until one morning it suddenly isn't. These costs never appear on an invoice. That does not make them free. One evening, an executive met an old friend for dinner after nearly 3 years apart. The executive had become financially successful. His business had expanded into several countries. His calendar was full months in advance. His phone barely stopped vibrating long enough for him to finish a sentence. Across the table sat his friend, a school teacher, comfortable, though not wealthy, present, calm. He spoke slowly because he had nowhere else to be. Halfway through the meal, the executive laughed quietly and admitted something surprising. I spent 10 years building a business that finally bought me everything except the time to enjoy it. His friend smiled gently. Maybe you built the wrong thing. That sentence lingered long after dinner ended because it raises an uncomfortable possibility. Sometimes the problem is not that we failed. Sometimes the problem is that we succeeded at the wrong goal. Success without alignment eventually feels strangely empty. You can earn more while living less. You can accumulate possessions while losing presence. You can become admired by strangers while becoming unfamiliar to yourself. This is why defining freedom matters before pursuing income. Ask 10 people what financial freedom means. You will hear 10 different answers. For some, it means never worrying about bills. For others, it means traveling whenever they wish. Some dream of creative independence. Others simply want enough flexibility to eat dinner with their family every night. None of these definitions are wrong, but they are dangerously easy to confuse. If you never define freedom for yourself, someone else will happily define it for you, usually through advertising, usually by convincing you that fulfillment is one purchase away. The marketplace is remarkably skilled at creating dissatisfaction. It has to be. Satisfied people buy less. So every day you are encouraged to compare your beginning with someone else's highlight. A larger house, a faster car, a more impressive office, a vacation that looks perfect from carefully selected photographs. Comparison quietly changes your destination. Without realizing it, you stop building your life. You begin building an image. Images are expensive. Reality is far more rewarding. There is an old craftsman who built furniture for nearly 50 years. Someone once asked why he never expanded into dozens of factories even though demand was enormous. He answered with a smile, "Because I wanted to build tables, not spend my life managing people who build tables." At first, that answer sounds almost unambitious, until you understand what he protected. He understood the difference between growth and drift. Growth moves you toward the life you actually want. Drift moves you toward the life others expect you to want. Those paths often look identical in the beginning. Years later, they become impossible to confuse. Many side hustles fail not because the idea was weak. They fail because the idea belonged to someone else's definition of success. A person who loves teaching starts chasing e-commerce because it appears more profitable. A gifted designer forces themselves into trading because everyone online seems excited about it. A talented engineer tries becoming an influencer despite disliking public attention. Eventually, motivation disappears. Not because hard work is difficult, because the work itself never matched the person doing it. Long-term effort requires more than discipline. It requires compatibility. You do not need to love every moment of your work, but you should probably respect the game you have chosen to play. Otherwise, every difficult season feels like punishment instead of investment. This is one reason the 1% often appear unusually patient. They have usually chosen games they are willing to keep playing longer than everyone else, not because they always enjoy them. Because the process still feels meaningful when progress slows. That matters more than talent. A marathon runner does not succeed because they sprint harder than everyone else during the first kilometer. They succeed because they understand the distance. Modern culture encourages sprinting. Everything's urgent. Limited offers, breaking news, new trends, instant notifications. Urgency has become entertainment. Wisdom rarely feels urgent. It quietly waits. The opportunity to master communication will still matter next year. The opportunity to build trust will still matter in 10 years. The opportunity to become someone who solves difficult problems will probably matter for the rest of your life. These are slow investments. Slow investments often produce extraordinary returns. One of the most valuable exercises you can ever do is surprisingly simple. Write down the skills you already possess, not the ones you wish you had, the ones you can genuinely offer today. Then ask another question. Which of these skills becomes dramatically more valuable if I improve it for the next 5 years? Notice what this does. It shifts your attention away from trends and back toward leverage. Instead of asking where the money is moving today, you begin asking who you are becoming over time. That change in perspective is enormous because markets change, character compounds, skills deepen, judgment sharpens, integrity becomes recognizable, trust spreads through conversations you will never hear. Someone recommends your work to another person. That person recommends you again. Years later, opportunities begin arriving without advertisements or cold messages. People often call this luck. It is usually reputation traveling ahead of you. Reputation is one of the few assets that appreciates quietly. You cannot buy it overnight. You cannot fake it for long. You earn it, one fulfilled promise at a time. The beautiful thing about reputation is that it keeps working after today's effort is finished. Someone remembers how you treated them years ago. Someone remembers that you delivered exactly what you promised. Someone remembers that you admitted a mistake instead of hiding it. Those memories become opportunities long after the original work has ended. That is leverage almost nobody measures. The wealthiest people are often building invisible assets while everyone else is counting visible income. Relationships, credibility, knowledge, systems, judgment. These things cannot always be measured on a spreadsheet, yet they often determine every number that eventually appears there. So the next time another opportunity flashes across your screen promising quick riches, pause before asking how much it pays. Ask instead, what kind of person will I become if I spend the next 5 years doing this every day? Because eventually, every side hustle becomes something much bigger than an income source. It becomes a teacher. The only question is whether it teaches you habits that make your future larger or habits that slowly make your world smaller. And once you begin looking at opportunity through that lens, you start noticing patterns that were invisible before, patterns that reveal why some people seem to create momentum wherever they go, while others remain trapped in a cycle of endless effort without ever truly moving forward. Momentum is one of the least understood forces in business. People think momentum appears after success. The truth is almost the opposite. Momentum appears after consistency. Success simply makes the momentum visible. Picture a large stone resting at the bottom of a hill. The first push feels almost pointless. Nothing seems to happen. You strain against the weight. Your muscles burn. The stone barely moves. If someone walked by during those first few minutes, they might quietly conclude that your effort is being wasted. Then, almost imperceptibly, the stone shifts. Another push. A few more inches. Another push. Eventually, gravity begins helping instead of resisting. What once demanded every ounce of strength now continues moving with far less effort. Many people quit while the stone is still standing still. The 1% continue pushing until gravity becomes their partner. Business has its own version of gravity. A satisfied customer returns. A recommendation creates another customer. Experience shortens the time needed to solve problems. Confidence replaces hesitation. Systems eliminate repeated mistakes. Small improvements accumulate until ordinary work begins producing extraordinary outcomes. From the outside, observers call it overnight success. Those who built it simply smile. They remember the years when nothing appeared to move. There is another reason so many side hustles fail. People try to earn before they learn. This sounds practical. After all, everyone wants income. But imagine hiring a surgeon whose primary goal was simply to finish the operation as quickly as possible. Would that make you feel confident? Of course not. The surgeon first mastered the craft. The income followed. The same principle quietly governs almost every profession. Mastery creates value. Value creates income. Reverse that order and frustration becomes almost inevitable. This does not mean ignoring money. Money matters. It provides security. It creates options. It protects families. It allows generosity. Pretending otherwise would be dishonest. The danger begins when money becomes the only score you keep. There are businesses earning millions while destroying the health of their founders. There are careers paying modestly while producing deeply meaningful lives. There are entrepreneurs with enormous revenue and almost no profit. There are teachers whose influence continues shaping lives decades after retirement. The scoreboard depends on what game you believe you are playing. A young programmer once received 2 offers. One company promised a much higher salary. The work would be repetitive, comfortable, predictable. The second company paid less. The projects were difficult. The learning curve was steep. There was no guarantee of success. Friends urged him toward the higher paycheck. He chose the harder path. 5 years later, the difference became obvious. The first role had increased income. The second had increased capability. Capability eventually multiplied income beyond what the original salary difference could ever have provided. This illustrates another principle the 1% understand. Do not merely optimize for today's paycheck. Optimize for tomorrow's ability. Ability compounds faster than salary. Someone who becomes remarkably skilled eventually creates opportunities that someone merely chasing immediate income never even sees. Think about every remarkable person you admire. Perhaps they write, perhaps they lead, perhaps they invent, perhaps they invest, perhaps they teach. Behind every visible achievement stands an invisible obsession with becoming better, not busier, better. Busyness can be rented, excellence cannot. This distinction matters enormously in an age where productivity has become almost performative. People proudly announce how little they sleep, how many meetings they attended, how many projects they juggle, how many notifications demand their attention. Very few proudly announce how carefully they protect uninterrupted thinking. Yet history repeatedly shows that breakthroughs are born from depth, not constant interruption. Great books were not written between endless notifications. Great businesses were not designed during continuous distraction. Great ideas require empty space. Silence has become an unfair advantage. The person who can sit alone with one meaningful problem for 2 uninterrupted hours possesses a competitive edge that algorithms cannot manufacture. Unfortunately, silence feels uncomfortable at first. Without constant stimulation, your mind begins surfacing questions you have been avoiding. Am I building the right thing? Why am I chasing this goal? What am I afraid of? Have I confused activity with purpose? These are not pleasant questions. They are necessary ones. Many people stay busy simply because busyness postpones self-reflection. If every evening is filled with another task, another client, another delivery, another notification, there is never enough quiet to notice that you may be climbing the wrong mountain. The courage to pause is often greater than the courage to continue, because pausing risks discovering that change is necessary. There is a beautiful practice followed by some of the world's most thoughtful investors. Before making a major decision, they ask themselves a remarkably simple question. If I already owned this business today, would I buy it again? Try applying that question to your own side hustle. If you already owned it exactly as it exists today, would you choose it again? Would you willingly exchange your evenings, your weekends, your energy, your attention for what it is giving back? If the answer is yes, wonderful. Keep building. If the answer is no, do not ignore that feeling simply because you have already invested time. One of the most dangerous phrases in business is, "I have come too far to stop now." Sometimes stopping is wisdom. Sometimes changing direction is strength. Sometimes letting go of an average opportunity creates room for an extraordinary one. The goal is not stubbornness. The goal is alignment. There is an old saying among sailors, "You cannot change the wind, but you can adjust the sails." The people who thrive over decades rarely possess perfect predictions. They possess remarkable adaptability. Markets change. Technology evolves. Consumer behavior shifts. Entire industries appear and disappear. Adaptable people do not panic. They learn. They experiment. They adjust. They keep moving. Rigid people mistake change for disaster. Adaptable people recognize change as information. This mindset becomes increasingly valuable every year. The world of 2025 is moving faster than almost anyone predicted. Artificial intelligence reshapes professions. Global markets respond instantly to events across continents. Small creators compete with giant corporations. A teenager with a laptop can build something that reaches millions. An established company can become irrelevant by refusing to evolve. In such a world, certainty is less valuable than learning. Curiosity becomes capital. Humility becomes strength. The willingness to say, "I do not know yet, but I will learn," becomes one of the greatest competitive advantages a person can possess. Perhaps this is the right moment for another brief pause. If this conversation has helped you rethink what success really means, consider subscribing so we can continue exploring ideas like these together. Not because another number changes the value of these words, but because building a thoughtful community of people committed to long-term growth creates conversations that are increasingly rare. And if there is one lesson you carry from today's journey so far, write it down somewhere. You will actually see it tomorrow. Insight fades quickly unless it becomes action. Because in the end, knowledge alone has never transformed a life. Applied wisdom has. And the next lesson may be the one that changes not how much you earn, but how you decide what is truly worth earning in the first place. The older you become, the more you realize that wealth is measured in more than numbers. There is financial wealth. There is physical energy. There is emotional peace. There is intellectual curiosity. There is the trust other people place in your name. And there is time. Time may be the only form of wealth that cannot be borrowed back once it has been spent. This is why the best side hustle is not always the one with the highest hourly return today. It is often the one that steadily increases the value of your future hours. That sounds subtle. It is one of the biggest differences between the 99% and the 1%. The 99% ask, "How much can I earn tonight?" The 1% ask, "What can I build today that makes tomorrow easier?" One question creates income. The other creates leverage. A woman spent every Saturday teaching children how to draw. The money was modest. Friends encouraged her to stop and find something more profitable. Instead, she paid attention. Every week, parents asked the same questions. "Do you have worksheets? Can we practice at home? Do you recommend supplies? Could my child learn online?" She noticed a pattern. The parents were revealing a problem without realizing it. So instead of adding more Saturday classes, she created lesson guides. then recorded simple video tutorials, then built an online membership. Years later, thousands of families she had never met were learning from material she created once and continued improving. Notice what happened. She did not work harder. She listened better. Opportunity often whispers before it shouts. Most people never hear it because they are too busy chasing the next idea. The market constantly tells you what it needs. Customers ask questions. Friends complain about frustrations. Colleagues repeat the same obstacles. Neighbors struggle with familiar tasks. Hidden inside ordinary conversations are extraordinary business ideas, but only for people paying attention. Attention is more valuable than inspiration. Inspiration visits unexpectedly. Attention can become a habit. There is another misconception that quietly destroys progress. People believe confidence comes before action. They wait until they feel certain. They wait until fear disappears. They wait until they finally believe in themselves. Then they plan to begin. Life almost never works that way. Confidence usually arrives carrying the luggage of completed actions. The first sale creates confidence. The 10th sale creates calm. The 100th sale creates conviction. Action introduces confidence. Waiting rarely does. Think back to something you once feared that now feels ordinary. Driving a car, speaking to strangers, starting a new job, using unfamiliar technology. At one point, all of these things felt uncomfortable, not because you lacked ability, because you lacked repetition. Repetition transforms uncertainty into familiarity. The same principle applies to building wealth. Many people are not afraid of failure. They are afraid of looking inexperienced. Unfortunately, every expert has a hidden history of looking inexperienced. Every accomplished speaker once forgot what to say. Every respected investor once made poor decisions. Every successful entrepreneur once wondered whether anyone would ever buy what they created. The difference is not perfection. The difference is continuation. Continuation is underrated because it looks ordinary. Quitting creates dramatic stories. Continuing creates extraordinary lives. There is a fascinating pattern among people who achieve remarkable things over long periods. They become increasingly difficult to distract, not because they possess stronger willpower than everyone else, because they become increasingly clear about what deserves a no. Every meaningful yes requires dozens of invisible no answers. No to unnecessary meetings. No to endless scrolling. No to every exciting opportunity that does not fit the larger vision. No to comparisons that steal peace without creating progress. No to habits that slowly weaken tomorrow for the comfort of today. People admire discipline. They rarely admire the thousands of decisions discipline quietly refuses. Imagine trying to fill a bucket with water while holes remain in the bottom. You can pour faster. You can carry more buckets. You can work until exhaustion. None of it matters until the leaks are repaired. Many financial lives resemble that bucket. Income increases. Expenses quietly expand. Attention fragments. Energy leaks through constant distraction. Time disappears into habits that provide almost nothing in return. Then people wonder why greater effort never creates lasting progress. Sometimes improvement does not begin by adding something new. It begins by removing what never belonged. Removing unnecessary subscriptions. Removing draining commitments. Removing habits that consume hours while giving almost nothing back. Removing the pressure to impress people who are never paying close attention anyway. Life becomes surprisingly lighter when unnecessary weight disappears. One investor was once asked what separated his greatest successes from his greatest mistakes. People expected him to mention brilliant analysis or advanced financial models. Instead, he answered with remarkable simplicity. My biggest successes came from saying no almost every day. That answer puzzled the audience. Then he explained, every attractive opportunity demands attention. Attention is limited. If you constantly divide it, eventually nothing receives enough to become exceptional. The same principle applies far beyond investing. Relationships improve when attention is undivided. Learning accelerates when concentration deepens. Health improves when consistency replaces intensity. Businesses grow when priorities remain clear. Your future is shaped less by the opportunities you accept than by the distractions you decline. There is a beautiful paradox hidden inside all of this. Freedom is often created through limitation. A musician limits notes into melodies. A poet limits words into meaning. A sculptor removes stone until beauty appears. Likewise, an extraordinary life is often built by carefully deciding what does not belong. This realization changes how you think about productivity. Productivity is not squeezing more tasks into every hour. It is ensuring the right tasks receive your best hours. There is an enormous difference. One leaves you exhausted, the other leaves you fulfilled. As your side hustle grows, another temptation appears: expansion. The first success makes you believe every new opportunity deserves pursuit. Customers request additional services. Partnerships appear. New platforms emerge. Every option looks promising. Growth becomes dangerous precisely because things are finally working. This is when wisdom becomes more valuable than ambition. Not every opportunity is an assignment. Some are distractions wearing expensive clothes. The strongest companies in the world often become stronger not because they constantly add more. They become stronger because they fiercely protect what they already do exceptionally well. Excellence requires boundaries. Without them, quality slowly dissolves into quantity. One of the most important financial decisions you will ever make has nothing to do with stocks, property, or business. It concerns your attention. Every morning you wake with a limited amount of mental clarity. Where you invest it determines far more than where you invest your money. Attention creates decisions. Decisions create actions. Actions repeated become identity. Identity eventually shapes destiny. That entire chain begins with something as ordinary as what receives your focus during the first hour of your day. Perhaps the greatest side hustle is not another source of income at all. Perhaps it is becoming the kind of person whose skills, judgment, character, and reputation naturally attract opportunity wherever they go. Because people eventually stop buying only products, they begin buying trust, they begin buying reliability, they begin buying peace of mind, and those qualities cannot be manufactured overnight. They are built quietly, promise by promise, choice by choice, ordinary day after ordinary day, until one morning the world begins treating you differently, not because luck finally arrived, but because you have gradually become someone capable of creating opportunities that once seemed impossible to reach. There is one final illusion that deserves to be exposed before we go any further. The illusion that financial success is created by information alone. Look around. Never before in history has knowledge been so accessible. You can learn marketing from experts on another continent. You can study programming for free. You can watch world-class lectures on negotiation, psychology, finance, communication, and leadership without leaving your home. The problem is no longer access. The problem is application. Information has become entertainment. People consume another podcast, another book, another video, another strategy, another productivity system. For a few hours they feel transformed. Then tomorrow arrives, nothing changes. Because information without action becomes another form of procrastination. It feels productive because your mind is busy. Your life remains exactly the same. There is an old saying that wisdom is knowledge remembered at the moment it becomes useful. That is why successful people rarely try to remember everything. They build systems that help them apply the right lessons consistently. They keep notes. They review mistakes. They ask difficult questions after every project. They create feedback loops. Instead of chasing endless new ideas, they become remarkably good at using the timeless ones. Think about the principles that have remained valuable for centuries. Keep your promises. Treat people with respect. Spend less than you earn. Learn continuously. Solve real problems. Take responsibility. Protect your reputation. Exercise patience. None of these ideas are new. Yet they continue creating extraordinary results because almost everyone searches for something more exciting instead of mastering what already works. There is something deeply human about believing the next opportunity will finally solve everything. The next business, the next platform, the next investment, the next trend. Hope is beautiful. Blind hope is expensive. Hope should inspire preparation, not replace it. Preparation is quiet. It rarely receives applause. A pilot prepares before takeoff. An athlete prepares before competition. A musician prepares before the performance. Yet somehow people expect financial success to appear without the same commitment to preparation. The 1% understand that preparation often looks boring from the outside. Reading contracts carefully, studying customers, improving communication, learning accounting, building better systems, documenting processes, reviewing failures honestly. These activities rarely become viral online. They quietly become profitable in real life. There was once a young entrepreneur who proudly told an older mentor that he wanted to become a millionaire before turning 30. The mentor smiled. Why? The young man hesitated. Freedom, security, respect. The mentor nodded. Then spend the next 10 years becoming the person who deserves to manage that responsibility. Because money magnifies character. It rarely changes it. If you are careless with $100, you often become careless with 100,000. If you are generous with little, generosity usually grows alongside wealth. If you panic during small setbacks, larger numbers rarely remove that fear. Money amplifies habits already present. This is why personal development is not separate from financial development. They grow together. Discipline influences savings. Communication influences sales. Emotional stability influences investing. Curiosity influences innovation. Integrity influences opportunity. The strongest financial foundation is almost always built on invisible personal qualities. That realization changes everything. Instead of asking only how to earn more, you begin asking how to become more valuable. Instead of obsessing over income, you invest in judgment. Instead of chasing appearances, you strengthen substance. Substance has remarkable patience. It does not need immediate recognition. It knows that eventually reality catches up. Imagine planting bamboo. For years, almost nothing appears above the surface. Someone unfamiliar with bamboo might assume nothing is happening. Then, after years of hidden development, growth accelerates dramatically. The roots were preparing long before the shoots became visible. Human potential often follows the same pattern. You may spend months improving communication without obvious rewards. Then one conversation changes your career. You may spend years studying your craft. Then one opportunity reveals the value of everything you quietly learned. The outside world calls it luck. You recognize preparation meeting opportunity. That is one of the most satisfying moments a person can experience, not because success arrives, because you finally understand that your quiet work was never wasted. Perhaps there is someone listening right now who feels discouraged, someone who has started and stopped more projects than they can remember, someone wondering whether they have already missed their chance. If that is you, remember this: failure is expensive only when you refuse to learn from it. Otherwise, it becomes tuition. Every unsuccessful attempt teaches something. Maybe it teaches you about customers. Maybe it teaches you about discipline. Maybe it teaches you what kind of work drains you and what kind energizes you. Those lessons have value. Do not throw them away simply because they arrived wearing the clothes of disappointment. Every experienced entrepreneur carries stories they rarely post online. Products that failed, ideas that never found an audience, partnerships that collapsed, investments that disappointed. Those experiences did not disqualify them. They educated them. You are not behind because your path looks different. You are behind only if you stop walking. There will always be someone earning more, someone growing faster, someone receiving more attention. That race has no finish line. Do not waste your life trying to win a competition that constantly changes its rules. Instead, compete with yesterday's version of yourself. Become slightly wiser, slightly calmer, slightly more disciplined, slightly more useful. Those improvements appear small. Compounded over years, they become extraordinary. One day someone will ask how your success happened. They will expect a secret, a shortcut, a lucky investment, a hidden strategy. You may simply smile because you will know the truth. It was never one dramatic decision. It was thousands of ordinary ones. Choosing to keep learning, choosing to keep showing up, choosing to protect your attention, choosing to finish what mattered, choosing to say no when everyone else chased another distraction, choosing to build leverage instead of merely collecting more work, choosing patience when impatience looked easier, choosing purpose over appearance. That is how the 1% quietly separate themselves from the 99. Not by working themselves into exhaustion, but by thinking more clearly, learning more deeply, building more intentionally, and understanding that real wealth is never created by chasing every opportunity that appears. It is created by recognizing the few opportunities worthy of your life, giving them your best years, and trusting that when wisdom, discipline, character, and focused effort finally begin compounding together, the life you once imagined as impossible slowly becomes the life you wake up grateful to live. There is one more lesson that rarely appears in books about money because it is difficult to measure the relationship between wealth and peace. Many people believe peace arrives after financial success. Sometimes it does, sometimes it quietly disappears because success was built without boundaries. The entrepreneur answers emails at midnight. The freelancer cannot enjoy a vacation without checking messages. The business owner sits through family dinners while mentally solving tomorrow's problems. From the outside, everything looks impressive. Inside, the mind never truly rests. That is not freedom. That is dependence wearing expensive clothes. The purpose of building wealth is not to become unavailable to life. It is to become more available for what matters, for the people you love, for meaningful work, for health, for curiosity, for moments that never appear on a financial statement but become priceless in memory. A grandfather once told his grandson something that seemed ordinary at the time. Money is wonderful when it gives you choices. It becomes dangerous when it becomes the only choice you know how to make. The grandson did not fully understand those words until decades later. He watched talented friends continue accepting projects they no longer believed in because they had built lifestyles too expensive to leave behind. He watched successful professionals lose the ability to enjoy an afternoon without feeling guilty for not producing. He watched people accumulate everything except contentment. And he realized something. Financial freedom is not only the ability to earn, it is also the ability to say no. No to clients who violate your values. No to opportunities that steal your attention from what matters most. No to lifestyles that quietly become cages. The stronger your financial foundation becomes, the more carefully you must decide what deserves your time, because eventually time becomes the rarest asset you own. There is a beautiful exercise I encourage you to try. Imagine meeting yourself 10 years from now. Not the version who became famous, not the version who became unimaginably wealthy, simply the version who became deeply wise. You ask one question: what do you wish I had started earlier? Listen carefully to the answer your imagination gives you. It will probably not mention another social media platform. It will probably not recommend chasing every trend. It may tell you to read more, to protect your health, to invest consistently, to learn communication, to spend more evenings with your family, to become known for keeping your word, to build one remarkable skill instead of collecting dozens of average ones. The older version of yourself understands something the younger version often forgets. Everything compounds. Regret compounds. Gratitude compounds. Debt compounds. Knowledge compounds. Trust compounds. Neglect compounds. Kindness compounds. The direction matters more than the speed. There is another misunderstanding surrounding the 1%. People imagine they possess extraordinary discipline every hour of every day. They do not. They become distracted. They doubt themselves. They procrastinate. They make mistakes. They become discouraged. The difference is not that they avoid these experiences. The difference is that they recover faster. A bad morning does not become a bad week. A bad week does not become a bad year. They refuse to build identities around temporary setbacks. Instead of saying, "I failed," they ask, "What failed?" That single change in language changes everything. If the strategy failed, improve the strategy. If the offer failed, improve the offer. If the timing failed, adjust the timing. But never confuse the outcome of one attempt with the value of the person making it. Your identity should never be held hostage by your latest result. Because results fluctuate. Character can continue growing. A gardener does not dig up seeds every morning to check whether they are growing. He waters them. He removes weeds. He protects the soil. He trusts the process. Many people destroy their own progress by constantly interrupting it. One week, they commit to learning sales. The next week, they abandon it for cryptocurrency. Then content creation. Then trading. Then another online course. Then another business idea. Each new beginning feels exciting. None survive long enough to become fruitful. Patience is not passive. Patience is disciplined consistency. It is choosing to continue caring for what matters even when visible progress feels slow. There is remarkable strength in becoming difficult to discourage. Not impossible, just difficult. The world will always contain uncertainty. Markets rise and fall. Technology evolves. Industries transform. Unexpected events interrupt carefully designed plans. Resilience is not pretending these realities do not exist. Resilience is developing the ability to adapt without abandoning your principles. The people who continue growing across decades usually possess flexible strategies and stable values. Their methods evolve. Their integrity does not. Their tools change. Their commitment to serving people remains. Their businesses transform. Their curiosity continues expanding. That combination is extraordinarily powerful. Perhaps the greatest investment you will ever make is becoming someone who can create value in almost any environment, someone who communicates clearly, learns quickly, acts honestly, keeps promises, solves problems, treats people with respect. Those qualities cannot be automated. They cannot be outsourced. They remain valuable regardless of economic cycles. And when combined with focused effort, they become the foundation upon which lasting wealth quietly stands. So let us return to the question that began this journey. Why do 99% fail while 1% win? Not because the 1% discover secret opportunities unavailable to everyone else. Not because they possess unlimited motivation. Not because they never experience fear. They win because they understand that success is less about chasing more and more about becoming more. They understand that attention is finite, that trust is earned, that leverage matters more than endless labor, that depth eventually defeats distraction, that consistency quietly defeats intensity, that reputation travels further than advertising, that character outlasts trends, and perhaps most importantly, they understand that the greatest side hustle is not another job squeezed into the edges of an already exhausted life. It is the deliberate construction of a future where your skills become so valuable, your judgment so reliable, your system so effective, and your reputation so strong that opportunities begin searching for you instead of the other way around. When that happens, something remarkable changes. You stop asking how to escape work. You begin creating work worth giving your life to. You stop measuring success only by what enters your bank account. You measure it by the freedom to choose, the freedom to think, the freedom to rest without guilt, the freedom to create, the freedom to give, the freedom to be fully present with the people whose names will matter long after every financial milestone has faded into memory. That is the side hustle truth almost nobody talks about. The real victory was never building another source of income. The real victory was building a life that no longer needs escaping. And when you finally understand that, you stop chasing every shining opportunity that passes by and begin walking with quiet confidence toward the few that deserve your best years, knowing that the richest future is rarely built by those who do the most, but by those who choose the wisest work, give it their full attention, and patiently allow time to transform ordinary effort into an extraordinary life. There is one final story I want to leave with you, not because it is dramatic, because it is ordinary. And ordinary stories are often the ones that quietly change lives. A man planted an apple tree in his backyard. His neighbor laughed. You'll be old before that tree gives you anything." The man smiled and continued digging. The following spring, nothing happened. The second spring, almost nothing happened. The neighbor laughed again. "Still waiting?" The man nodded. "I'm not waiting. I'm growing." Years passed. The tree became strong enough to produce fruit. Children climbed its branches. Neighbors rested in its shade. Birds nested there every season. Long after the man was gone, people continued eating from a tree he had planted decades earlier. That is what real wealth looks like. It outlives the excitement that created it. We live in a world obsessed with fast results, fast shipping, fast internet, fast success, fast money, fast fame. Yet the most valuable things in life still move at the same pace they always have. Trust grows slowly. Wisdom grows slowly. Character grows slowly. Mastery grows slowly. Strong relationships grow slowly. Healthy bodies grow slowly. Meaningful businesses grow slowly. The pace has never changed. Only our expectations have. Perhaps that is why so many people become discouraged. Not because they are incapable, because they expect an oak tree to appear where only an acorn has been planted. There will always be someone promising a shortcut, someone selling certainty, someone insisting they have discovered the effortless path. Be careful. The easiest money is often made by selling the dream rather than living it. Ask yourself a different question whenever someone promises extraordinary returns. If this strategy truly worked exactly as advertised, why would they need me more than they need to use it themselves? Healthy skepticism is not negativity. It is financial maturity. There is another habit shared by people who build lasting success. They become students again. No matter how much they achieve, they remain curious. The entrepreneur studies psychology. The engineer studies communication. The artist studies business. The investor studies history because they understand something profound. Growth usually happens at the intersection of different skills. The greatest opportunities often belong to people who combine abilities that rarely appear together. Someone who understands technology and storytelling. Someone who understands finance and empathy. Someone who understands design and education. Someone who understands leadership and deep listening. The future belongs less to specialists who refuse to grow and more to adaptable learners who never stop expanding. Never let success convince you that learning is finished. The moment you believe you have nothing left to learn, your decline has already begun. Humility protects progress. Ego quietly taxes it. As this journey comes to an end, I want you to remember the title that brought us together, The Side Hustle Lie. The lie was never that side hustles cannot work. Many do. The lie is believing that simply adding more work automatically creates more freedom. Freedom is created through clarity, through leverage, through discipline, through patience, through becoming someone whose value continues increasing long after today's work is finished. If you remember nothing else, remember these truths. Protect your attention as carefully as your money. Build skills before chasing shortcuts. Create value before demanding rewards. Choose depth over constant distraction. Let your reputation become your greatest marketing strategy. Be patient enough to allow compounding to do what excitement never can. And never confuse motion with meaningful progress. One focused hour can be worth more than 10 distracted ones. One remarkable skill can outperform 10 average ones. One trustworthy relationship can open more doors than years of self-promotion. One wise decision repeated consistently can reshape an entire lifetime. Someday, perhaps years from now, someone will look at your life and assume you were lucky. They will see the harvest. They will not see the mornings when you studied while others slept. They will not see the evenings when you chose learning over entertainment. They will not see the opportunities you declined because they distracted you from the future you truly wanted. They will not see the doubts you carried quietly while continuing to move forward anyway. That is perfectly fine. You are not building your life for applause. You are building it for peace. Because in the end, the richest person in the room is rarely the one with the loudest success story. It is the one who owns their time, keeps their integrity, sleeps with a clear mind, serves others with genuine value, and wakes each morning knowing that the life they are living was built intentionally, one thoughtful decision at a time. So when you close this audiobook and return to your own life, do not ask yourself how many side hustles you need. Ask yourself a better question. What is the one skill, the one habit, the one commitment that if I devoted myself to it with patience and excellence over the next 5 years would quietly transform every other area of my life? Then begin. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Today. Plant the tree, protect it, water it, trust it. Trust. One day you will stand beneath its shade and realize that everything worthwhile was growing long before anyone else could see it. And that is how the 99 become the one. There is one question that becomes more important the longer you stay in the game. Not how much money have I made, but who have I become while making it? At first, that question sounds philosophical, almost sentimental. Yet, if you study people who have sustained success for decades instead of years, you begin noticing that this question quietly guided many of their biggest decisions. Because business is never just building a company. It is building the person capable of leading one. Every challenge reveals something about you. The difficult customer reveals your patience. The failed launch reveals your resilience. The unexpected success reveals your humility. The criticism reveals your emotional maturity. Money simply accelerates these lessons. It does not replace them. There is a reason some people lose everything after making millions, while others continue creating value no matter what circumstances they face. One built wealth, the other built capacity. Capacity cannot be taken away. If tomorrow every account disappeared, every investment vanished, every client left, what would remain? Your ability to think, your ability to communicate, your ability to solve problems, your reputation, your discipline, your relationships, your character. Share this audiobook with someone who is working hard but wondering if there is a wiser way forward. And in the comments, finish this sentence. The one thing I will build consistently from today is write it down. Not for me, for yourself. Because the moment you give your commitment a voice, it becomes harder to abandon. Your future is not waiting somewhere in the distance. It is being created by the choice you make next. Walk slowly, think deeply, build patiently, stay humble, keep learning, and never forget the truth hidden behind every lasting success. The goal was never to build the perfect side hustle. The goal was to build a life so intentional, so valuable, and so deeply aligned with who you are that success becomes the natural consequence of the person you have chosen to become. The rest will follow. One decision, one day, 1 year, one lifetime, and that is how the 1% win.